Good evening, and thank you for joining the District Department of Transportation. We're just going to give it a few minutes for a few more folks to join us on this virtual meeting.
Patrice, it's 6:35. Patrice?
Yes, good morning.
Yeah.
Yes,
I think we can go ahead and 6:35.
okay. All right. Thank you so much for joining the District Department of Transportation this evening. We will be getting started um, now. Um, And you'll be hearing more about the Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue and Good Hope Road Southeast Area Safety and Connectivity Study. This will be the first public meeting that we'll be hosting for this project. Before I get started, I just want to let you know about some of the meeting logistics, and I'm going to pass it off to Jamie Ernst, who is from DDOT, who will be going over some of those WebEx functions for us this evening.
Hi, good evening, everyone. As Patrice said, I'll just be going over a few logistics before we start. Because this is an open meeting, it is being recorded, and it's available to view on our YouTube channel and is being live streamed on DDOT's Facebook page. Next slide, please. So we'll go over a few instructions on how to use WebEx. So for now, everyone is on mute. You're not able to unmute yourself if you're during the presentation. If you'd like to speak, please use the raise hand feature, which is at the bottom of the screen, and then we will be able to unmute you so you're able to speak. You are able to turn on closed captions during the meeting to have subtitles. If you'd like to do that, you can click on the closed caption icon, the CC box at the bottom left of the screen. Next slide, please. So in order to raise your hand to speak, so we're able to unmute you, please click the raise hand icon, which is at the bottom of the screen. That will indicate to the project team that you'd like to speak or ask a question. Next slide, please. So if you also have a question, you're able to use the question and answer feature. It should be open for you automatically, but if it is not, please click the 3-dot icon at the bottom right of the panel and select Q&A, and you'll be able to type a question. Make sure it's set to all panelists so we'll all be able to read it, and then we can address your question. Next slide, please. So now I will hand it over to Gabe to give an introduction about the project. Thank you. Gabe, I believe you're muted.
Yes, sorry about that. Yeah, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to the meeting tonight. This is our first public meeting for this important project, Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue and Good Hope Road, Southeast Safety and Connectivity Study. Next slide, please. Yeah, tonight we'll be discussing with you these agenda items. We're going to introduce the project team and the roles. We're going to go over the project overview. We're going to discuss the timeline and decision points as the project progresses. We're going to highlight some of the existing conditions that we have seen so far. Then there'll be, at the end, a question and answer section for everybody to ask any question they have and participate. Next slide, please. Okay, the first slide we have here will be the introduction of the project team and their roles. Next slide, please. This project is being managed by a team of DDOT staffs and also a team of consultant team. So it's a multi-team effort. Everybody have their own special areas that they're working on and dealing with. Next slide, please. Next slide. So among the project team, you have the we have the DDOT management team. We also have the consultant team. We have the interagency group. In the interagency group, we have people that work for different agencies within DDOT, and then we also have people like WMADA. We have people like WMADA, Federal Highway, and some other agencies relating to transportation. Then we also have the community advisory group. Next slide, please. Hope you can see this. Under the DDOT management team, you have planning, which is our group, planning and sustainability division. Then for our consultant team, Kelestins and Associates, they are the prime consultants. Then we have Tina Boyd and Associates, which is they are managing the public engagement aspect of the project. Then the other ones include VHB, AMT, and the PSI. So some of this will be doing some of the survey work, traffic analysis work for the project. Then if you look at the interagency partners, you can see we have Ward 8 Mayor's Office of Community Relations. We have the Council Member's Office. We have Department of Housing. We have DC Office of Planning. We have WAMADA. We have the Arts in the Right of Way program team. We have the Department of Energy. We have Fire and EMS. We have Federal Highway. We have MPD. We have National Park Service. We have US Parks Police also. If you look in the project area, these people are all in one shape or the other relating to the project, they're all around it. Then when it comes to the DDOT intra-agents group, we do have the environmental programs. We have the community engagement divisions. We have the infrastructure project management division. The IPMD folks, they are the ones that actually build whatever will come up within this study. So at the end of the study, our concept development, whatever is the final alternative, we're gonna hand it over to IPMD. They are our DDOT engineers, and they be the ones to move the project forward. We'll have the parking and ground transportation division, planning and sustainability division. We'll have the environmental folks, because we have to go through environmental reviews for each project to do, for most of the projects, especially when there's a federal fund involved. Then we don't have the right of way folks. We'll have our transit group. As you know, there's a lot of transit buses that go through the intersection. So that's why we have all these groups involved. So it's a multi-agency, multi-team effort to make sure that we don't leave anything untouched. Next slide, please. Then one of the important groups that we have in our partnership is the Community Advisory Group. You can see all the names listed here. So this group sounds as they are the standing board for the project. So we normally go to the Community Advisory Group first to discuss some of our findings, then get their feedback. Then after we met with them, we'll now go to the public meeting. So they sound, the Community Advisory Group sounds as a sounding board between the DDOT project team and then the public. So, and most of them, you can feel free to consult with them, to talk with them, or pass any information through them to us, because we're always going to meet with them before we go to the public meeting. Next slide, please. Next, we're going to go over the project overview.
All right. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, great. All right, so yeah, I'm Alec Pachowski, and I'm with Kittleson, the consultant for the project. So I'm going to go over the overview. So first, why is the project needed? And I think most of the people who live in this area know pretty well why it's needed. But really, it's barriers to safe, convenient travel. And that's come up over and over again, both from what we've heard from the community so far and also from the data and what we have reviewed. Second is a high number of crashes, and then just an overall kind of feeling of safety, transportation and traffic safety, and not feeling safe walking or biking in the area. And lastly, congestion. It's an area that's at capacity, especially the Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue and Good Hope Road intersection itself. And continuing, why is it needed? So the positive outcomes of this. One is connecting people to places of interest. It's both a barrier, it's a gateway to Anacostia, the historic district, and the community at large, and also reviving the commercial district in the area. And so we've heard quite a bit from the community, and we're coming into this knowing full well that there has been a lot of study, a lot of interest, and we've collected a lot of information even prior to us beginning the project. So we have here some quotes that we actually had prior to the beginning of the project. These were for other projects in the area of people talking about the area and the intersection itself. And we've highlighted here are some kind of keywords: dangerous intersection. It's too narrow. Bricks are sticking up on the sidewalk. People concerned about the 11th Street Bridge Park, or interested in the bridge park, but then also how are you going to get there, and then where do you park? And so the intersection itself, the study area is broader than the intersection, but of course the intersection of MLK and Good Hope Road is of course the center of the area. And you see it's an intersection that's constrained. There's really no room for expansion, for adding additional lanes in the area. The Good Hope Road approach on the west there is angled and comes in, kind of goes under the bridge. Martin Luther King Jr. to the north goes over 11th Street Bridge. And so it's a congested, constrained intersection. And yet the study area, the focus area we're calling it, is much broader than the intersection itself. And that's largely because to address those concerns at the intersection, we need to expand what we're looking at beyond the intersection and look at the network level. There's capacity issues at the intersection, but we can't, again, there's limited room to actually adjust things at the intersection. So we're going to take a look at the area surrounding the intersection, down to about U Street, east to around Minnesota Avenue, north over the bridge, northeast to 14th Street or so, and then Good Hope Road underneath 295 there. And so our focus and objectives for the project are highlighted as improve the safety conditions and relieve congestions for all users. And we're hoping to do so through efforts like this: community collaboration, multimodal access and safety, operational improvements, coordinating with other projects, in particular bus priority projects in the area, traffic circulation, as well as quick build interventions. And so I'm gonna hand it over to Patrice here, but we have the first of our discussion questions.
Alex, for our first discussion question, what changes do you want to see in the focus area?
And then if you can go to the link at the top, polev.com, and then / it's Laura A161. And Molly, are you able to put this in the chat for people?
Yes, I just put it in the chat. It's also in the multimedia viewer, which some folks may see open on the right-hand side. There's a panel. Press the continue button and it should load the page.
Okay.
And if you're having any issues using this polling feature, you can also put your answer in the chat. So we have walkability, bus lane continued all the way down MLK, safe for pedestrians and bikers, better, more consistent, wider sidewalks. I want the area to be safe for all users. Pedestrian issues addressed. Bike and walk trail connections on Good Hope Road to Anacostia Park. Pedestrian and bike-friendly spaces, traffic calming devices. Bike traffic needs an alternative path. Shepherd Branch Bike Trail needs to be a priority. So we see some more bike lane requests. I do not feel safe at all. Why are there 3 different bus stops at a different corner? So I have to run to all and stop cars from turning at all times, and no pedestrians can cross. Better crosswalks on Martin Luther King. The Martin Luther King Good Hope Road area is a walking nightmare for pedestrians, cyclists, wheelchairs, and strollers. All the design choices are anti-safety to cross this intersection.
All right, looks like the poll is full. So I guess that's a convenient stopping point. Of course, if you have more to add, please, you can do so in the chat as well. And then there's also a website that we'll talk about later where you can provide additional comment. So yeah, thank you for all of these responses. And there's going to be a few other questions here throughout the project, throughout this discussion. All right, and then Jamie is going to talk about the project timeline and decision points.
Yeah, thank you, Alec. So my name's Jamie Ernst. I'm the Deputy Project Manager working with Gabe and Alec. So I'm just going to go through the timeline for this project. Alex, next slide. So from November to June, we've been compiling existing conditions for the area, and we're now presenting those to you for your feedback and comments. Following this meeting, we'll take what we learned and work on some short-term and long-term ideas for the improvements of the intersection. Following that, we'll go back to you and have another public meeting and present those ideas. We'll do a final evaluation in October to December, and then come up with some final concepts for the intersection and present those back to you for our final round of public engagement. So that should be early next year. Thanks, Alec. Next slide.
All right. So Jamie talked about the long-term projects. So we're going to wrap up in January, February of next year. However, we're hoping to be able to do some work on the project while the project is or some work in the area while the project is actually in progress. So there's some short-term items that we've already identified, like repairing the sidewalk, repainting faded pavement markings, replacing missing flex posts, and then removing conflicting signs and repositioning block signs. So we've heard from the community quite a bit of ideas like this. And we are in particular interested if you have other areas that we should address. We are interested in hearing those comments from you as well. So those are some maintenance fixes. We're also, and you've probably seen this all over the district, hoping to do some quick build projects so you don't have to wait several years. As Gabe mentioned earlier, a lot of the outcomes of this project may be longer term construction and design, which requires a lengthier project or process going through the environmental processes, design processes until it's actually funded, built, and constructed. However, in the meantime, we hope to be able to do the quick build projects seen here as flex post, paint, signing, striping, and other elements. And so we're looking to, one, identify the long-term options, but also identify a lot of quick build projects so you can see immediate action on the street. All right, so I'm going to talk through some existing conditions. And at the beginning of every project, we really look through a variety of different areas and really understand a baseline so we can understand where we want to go, but also make sure we understand what's happening in the area now so we can figure out what can and should be addressed, but also what things are important to the community and what things should stay the way they are, or in particular, too, how to prioritize things later on. So these are a variety of the items in which we've reviewed. We have a wealth of data and information, and I'm going to touch on just a fraction of the information that we've seen. So I'm guessing I'm going to get some feedback here that asking if we've looked at something or some other items. If you don't hear something that you're interested in feeling like we should have reviewed, please let us know. There's a chance we have reviewed it, but there's also a chance we haven't. So I do want your feedback on these areas. So what we're hoping to achieve from this is really identify the key issues, the challenges, the needs, figure out really measuring for what matters. If you don't measure it, it usually doesn't matter. So we're trying to measure really, frankly, most of everything. Understand who and what can support the change, and then determine what actions are needed to align this transportation role with the community vision and the goals for the project. So first, I'm going to talk through the history of the area. And I think the history is really important in this area because the existing street network is a result of past projects that have really focused on regional traffic. This regional growth has led to a lot of pressure on a few critical points in the transportation system. So we're going to step back to 1947. And in 1947, You can see the area. There was a grid. The highway, the 295, I-295, the Anacostia Freeway did not exist at that time. However, there's still a barrier between this area and the water, and that the railroad tracks that are there today, they're not in active use today, but they were in active use in 1947, and they were a barrier at that time. You also see that the 11th Street Bridge exists. The original 11th Street Bridge exists. And you can see that S Street connected over to what was then called Nichols Avenue, was renamed to MLK Jr. Avenue in the 1970s. We see that S connects through, 11th Street connects through, and you can also see a semblance of Good Hope Road here, which actually angles over to get towards the Anacostia River. However, by 1988, you had the 11th Street Bridge, you had the 13th Street Bridge was constructed, I-295, and the Anacostia Freeway was also built, creating barriers between the area and the waterfront. And I see a chat here about the source of these historic photos. The previous photo was from the Library of Congress. And then these photos are from Google Earth. And Google Earth is fantastic because you can just click historical imagery and go back through to see them. But you will see here too, by 1988, MLK Jr. Avenue was one-way southbound, and 13th Street, which went over the 13th Street Bridge, was one-way northbound. And the bottom left, you can see 1999, a more clear view of the area. And you can again see that the on-ramps, that the 11th Street and 13th Street were connected immediately to the 11th and 13th Street bridges, which really became kind of like highway entrances at that point. In 2013, that entire interchange was rebuilt. And while the interchange allowed for a lot of traffic movements between 395, 695, 295, and stopped requiring a lot of vehicles who wanted to get from downtown DC to go on 295 or the Anacostia Freeway north, they no longer have to go through Pennsylvania Avenue, loop through the neighborhood, and they get back on the highway. They can now go through the new bridges that were constructed here at this interchange. However, locally in the area, it cut off quite a bit of access. So 13th Street was dead-ended at Ridge Place. And you can actually see today remnants of what used to be there. 13th Street is very wide north of Good Hope Road. And you can actually step back. So MLK Jr. Avenue, which was formerly one-way southbound, was converted to a two-way street. 13th Street remains a one-way street going north. And if you actually look back further on W Street east of Martin Luther King Jr., you can actually see dual left turn lanes onto 13th Street, which was intended to carry the contraflow traffic from Martin Luther King Jr. to W Street to 13th Street going north. And so all of these are remnants of the network that used to be there, but with the changes in the network really benefiting a lot of regional traffic from downtown DC and north, you've kind of left this area with this remnants of what used to be. And so today's network looks like this in the area. 13th Street, especially 13th Street north of Good Hope Road, has completely changed in purpose. Back in the day, it was really a principal arterial. It carried approximately the same amount of traffic as Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue and Good Hope Road. And today, 13th Street is, frankly, it's a local road. It has very few vehicles compared to Martin Luther King Jr. and Good Hope Road. But in the area, your arterials, and we like to classify our roads based on their function. So our arterials in the area are 11th Street, which becomes Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue, Good Hope Road, and also Minnesota Avenue to the east. So that brings us to our next question, asking about what changes have you observed in the focus area?
So we're gonna go to moving the polling. Again, the question is, what changes have you observed in the focus area? S Street is now closed. 13th Street, cars ignore the one-way. S Street is a parking lot. A lot of regional traffic going down Good Hope Road. Reckless drivers and speeding. Another comment about drivers driving the wrong way on 13th Street. Cars achieve highway speeds crossing the bridge. Railroad tracks are dangerous area. They keep moving the bus stop to make it more dangerous. 92 is one spot. 90 is on MLK. In the circulator, people turn left on red. How can we stop that? There's no enforcement of anything, speeding, reckless driving, or parking violations. Sidewalks are so inconsistent. The sidewalk just ends on the northbound MLK side, north of Good Hope Road. Reverend Wanda Thompson wrote, "Traffic is terrible." Currently, the road between Anacostia Park and MLK is not enforced at all. There is literally no sidewalk, so people run in the middle of the street to get into the park. All right, is that about it, Alec?
Yeah, it looks like the poll is full.
Okay, just before you move on,
Yeah.
I just want to have a friendly reminder to let you know that we'll be answering questions and comments at the end of the presentation.
Yeah, some of these observations are things that we noticed when we had our field walk. We went on a field walk with the KEC, the Community Advisory Group member. So we saw some of these things listed here. And also the interagency group, we also went out there. So these are consistent with what we observed during those field walk.
All right, so we're going to move on to more existing conditions. So we're talking about some plans, projects, and development. So what else is happening in the area? And so from this, we've learned that there's been a variety of plans and studies. And if you live in the area, you probably know this. There's been a ton of studies over the years. And they've mainly focused on access to the waterfront, 11th Street Bridge and adjoining related projects, and also safety over and over again at the intersection of Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue, Good Hope Road. And from all of these plans, we've really identified three main themes that we've seen over and over again. One is the area serves as a gateway to the Anacostia community. Two is about access to opportunities and services. And then the last, and this is in no order, but the last, safety and operations for all travel modes. And so one is a gateway, and we've seen this over and over again. The area really serves as an entrance to Anacostia, but it's also really the only way to get from areas west of the river to and through Anacostia. So it's a constraint, it's a gateway, it's a bottleneck, it's also an opportunity. So it's kind of all of the above. Next is access to opportunities, services, and recreation. And we've seen this over and over again about how people want access both to and through the community, but then also across, especially related to like the 11th Street Bridge Park. And then safety and operations for all travel modes. And so you see here some other kind of safety issues that we've identified and are consistent, I think, with a lot of what we've just heard from you, the community, and what you've been saying. So there's also a lot of key projects happening in the area. One is the 11th Street Bridge Park project, and a kind of cartoony rendering is shown here, where it connects really north and west of the intersection itself. To and to the south, you've seen the Frederick Douglass Memorial Bridge. And actually part of that project, the phase 2 of that project, so longer term, is there's a new interchange proposed at Suitland Parkway and Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue. There's also bus priority projects happening on Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue, and Minnesota Avenue. The Minnesota Avenue, it actually extends on Good Hope Road to the intersection itself. There's also traffic signal upgrades within the focus area, as well as the headquarter consolidations, Department of Homeland Security headquarter consolidation at St. E's campus. There's other projects that we've both heard the community talk about and that we've seen as well. So one is the 1234, the 1234 Good Hope Road development, the Shepherd's Branch Trail, and then also the redevelopment of Poplar Point. And so when we talk about the area, it's really the intersection itself, but we also need to talk about the network surrounding it. So there's many needs in the area. We have a constrained space, many competing modes. There's large vehicles, there's buses, there's trucks, there's other big traffic vehicles to go through. It's also a critical transit link, and there's also active storefronts and sidewalks in the area. So Move DC has identified priority corridors. These are corridors where things like freight transit and bicycle use should be prioritized. So the area qualifies for some kind of transit priority corridor for all of these. So for transit priority corridors, all the roads, the main arterial roads in the area are transit priority corridors per Move DC. The freight, MLK Junior Avenue and Minnesota Avenue, Good Hope Road in the area are also freight priority corridors. And then Good Hope Road east of the intersection is a bicycle priority corridor. And 11th Street north of or west of the Anacostia River is also bicycle priority corridor. So you could also kind of show that connecting those two is also going to be a priority corridor. Next, from a regional network perspective, we looked at the area. So in the area, for people who live in the area, this map is showing where people who live in the area work. And you can see on the bottom left that there is a large amount of the people who live in the area, and they all travel towards the northwest. And so you can see that there is a small amount of area in our area right around our focus area where people who live in the area also work there. You'll see a small amount of people who work in National Landing, Crystal City, but then obviously the key destination for people who live in our area, in this area and work is downtown. And what this is really telling us is that from an origin destination standpoint, it's pretty clear. You need to get people from this focus area to downtown, which really demonstrates how critical a direct transit link is to the focus area. So we also looked at demographic data and baseline health data in the area, which really helps us prioritize and look at other types of projects that can improve the area as well. So from an age perspective, we find that about 36% of the people who live in this area are either under 18 or 65 years and above. And typically, these two subgroups by age are the more at-risk travelers. And this compares to about 30% in the district. So we have more people under 18 and over 65 in our focus area, in this focus area, than in the rest of the district. Next, we looked at disability data. And disability data, so all this data comes from the census data. This is actually 2019 5-year estimate data, and they publish this every year. But we looked at persons with disabilities. And so the data does not break out the type of disability, but we do know that a lot of the disabilities are mobility disabilities. From this, we find that about 21% of the people in the area have disabilities, which compares to about 12% in the district overall. And when you look at 35 to 64 in particular, it's about 34% in the area have disabilities compared to 13.6% in the rest of the district. So it is significantly higher in this focus area than the rest of the district. And we also looked at vehicle ownership data. And we find that in this focus area, about 59% of study households have at least one vehicle available, which that also means the converse of that is 41% of the study area households do not have a vehicle available. And this compares to about 36% in the rest of the district who do not have a vehicle available. So there are fewer people with vehicles available in our study area than in the rest of the district. So we have another discussion question here. What travel modes do you typically use in the focus area?
All right. We have some answers coming in. All right.
All right, looks like the poll is full. It got full, I think, pretty quickly here. If you want to delete an answer and provide a different answer, you can do so. But yeah, I think this is a nice quick snapshot here of people at least tuning into this: ride the bus, ride a bike, walk or use a wheelchair. All right, and of course, if you have additional feedback you'd like to provide, you can do so in the chat as well. All right, so next we're going to talk about the safety in the area and also the pedestrian and bicycle network. So we've identified pedestrian network gaps, particularly on Good Hope Road. No bike facilities in the area. There's the Good Hope Road Southeast roadway is in the pedestrian high injury network. And we actually have access to the, to be published, it hasn't been released publicly yet, but the 2022 DDOT high injury network will have Good Hope Road in the pedestrian high injury network and Martin Luther King Jr. in the bicycle high injury network. We've identified that parking blocks sight lines, maintenance needs, a lot of conflicts, and then access to transit feels unsafe, which I think is, a lot of this is consistent with what you've been saying today already. So we did a crash analysis and we mapped out all of the fatal crashes and injury crashes in the area. So the crashes that were, there was an injury outcome. And frankly, this was partly because it would just, there'd be too many dots if we had all of the other property damage only crashes. So one thing to note, these are only reported crashes, which injury crashes and fatal crashes all are reported between 2016 and July of 2021. And this will be the same data that will be used for the high injury network that will be released soon. And so you can see there have been 3 fatalities in the area over the last 5 years. And then there's also, which is unfortunately to be expected, a concentration of crashes at intersections, particularly you can see at Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue, Good Hope Road, 14th Street and Good Hope Road, along with Minnesota Avenue and Good Hope Road. All right. And so next we reviewed transit. There is a high frequency of transit via bus lines. However, there's a lot of feedback that it's not always going where people want to go. That there's a high level of access to the Anacostia metro station. And there's high ridership in the area. There's also, unfortunately, high delay in the area. And as we've seen, frankly, what you've already said today, bus stops are unsafe and uncomfortable. And there are, as we mentioned earlier, other bus priority projects underway. So we mapped out all of the transit service that goes through the focus area. So this is not a recreation of just the WMATA bus route map, but these are all of the bus routes that go through the focus area. And what's really evident by looking at this map is the concentration of service at the Anacostia metro station. So there's quite a bit of service that goes through the intersection. There's also a decent amount of service, the V2, the B2, the W6, the W8, that pretty clearly is avoiding the intersection itself and routed around the intersection, particularly the V2 and the B2. As well, the P6 is currently the only route in the area that directly serves downtown without having a transfer at the Anacostia Metro Station or a transfer elsewhere. All right. We also looked at some environmental factors in the area. There's a lot of mapping we did. So from an environmental standpoint, we look at both the physical environment, the natural environment, so the birds and the trees and the grass, but also the cultural environment. So things like the Anacostia Historic District as well. And what we found is that, so one, there's the historic district designation in the area. There's also the national park adjacent to the area. There's also quite a few underground storage tanks in the area. The CSX corridor, the railroad tracks as well have come up in the environmental review. And then from a constraint standpoint, it's congested. And then as we've talked about earlier, there's a tight intersection geometry. So it's a fairly constrained intersection. So related to that, we'd like to know what challenges or obstacles you face when you travel in the focus area.
Almost get hit by cars daily. Cars not obeying laws. Excessive traffic, slow buses, and reckless drivers. Bikes. Please put 90, 92 in a P6 and circulator at one bus stop. Buses not running on time, too much traffic. Cycling down Good Hope Road is annoying and dangerous. No traffic enforcement or parking enforcement.
All right, looks like the poll is full. Once again, if you have additional comments, please feel free to put those in the chat.
Yeah,
I'm gonna let this come up here. Yeah, go ahead, Gabe.
yeah. As you can see from some of the observations and challenges raised, some issues are things that DDOT can address, and some others are things that our partners will handle. So this is the reason we have multi-partners in the project, like WMADA serves on that committee. So we're going to be sharing some of those issues that are not DDOT, things that are WMADA's, we're going to be sending those to them. We're going to discuss it at our interagency meetings so that they know what the issues and challenges you're facing. I just wanted to make that comment.
Yep.
Everything here is not DDOT, but we'll make sure that to pass on the information to the relevant agencies. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Gabe. All right, and we have one additional question for you, but before we get to the question, I want to talk about kind of the balancing different needs. So we've talked about in the area, it's a constrained area, and there's clearly a lot of different needs in the area. And you can see here, there's landscaping, there's freight, people want to walk, people want to get to and from their cars or pick up drop-offs. There's parking needs as well. And we've collected a lot of parking data in the area. Some people want to bike, some people clearly don't want bike lanes. People want access to transit. And we've also heard feedback that people don't want transit priority lanes or transit only lanes. So there's a lot of different needs. And unfortunately, in a city, in a constrained urban environment, there's not enough room on every street to put every single mode. However, it is a network, and oftentimes we talk about a complete network and complete kind of providing these different options in a network environment. So on the next question, what we're asking you is to rank your priority outcomes of the project. And you'll see when you get to this answer, the items on the left here, you'll see them in a list. and you can move those up and down in your response so that you can rank them and choose which of these you prefer over other items. And then you can submit it. After you submit it, you're allowed to edit it. But yeah, take a moment. I know it's going to take a little bit of time to rank these and read through them all. But we are interested in how you would prioritize each of these outcomes in the area.
So it looks like safer and more comfortable experience when waiting or walking or waiting at the bus stop is the priority outcome for this focus area based on the poll. Does this look like these are all the results that we have in? So first, safer and more comfortable experience when walking or waiting at the bus stop, faster and more reliable transit, then safer and more comfortable experience when biking. Fourth, less time spent sitting in traffic. Fifth, safer and more comfortable experience when driving. And sixth, improved appearance and amenities. Seventh, easier access to storefronts. And we have other. For other, if you don't mind putting, what those items might be or what those priorities might be in the chat, just to let us know.
Well, if you want to refine these at all in the chat. So yeah, this is really helpful. Yeah, thank you everyone for answering this. So yeah, it is pretty telling that the bus stops and transit were number 1 and 2 here on this response. Okay.
All right, so now we're going to go ahead and move over to the question and answer portion of the presentation. We have a couple comments in the chat. However, I do know that there was a hand raised by Reverend Thompson. Molly, do you want to unmute Reverend Thompson so she may ask her questions?
Yes, I just sent them a request. You appear,
Reverend,
I say, you appear to be unmuted.
okay. All right. Do we have any other hand raised? We can come back to Reverend Thompson. All right. So I'll go ahead and first want to say again, thank you for joining us this evening. If you have any additional questions that you would like to email us, our project email is info@mlk and ghrstudy.com. Again, it's info@mlk and ghrstudy.com. The project website is mlk-ghrstudy.ddot.dc.gov/. And you can also take your phone and scan the QR code to the left. All right, so the first comment that we have in the chat, and I apologize if I mispronounce your name. This is something that we saw during the polling. Abias said to all panelists, I would like for it to be safer for all users. Ezra said, the CXS tracks need to be on the table. Liz Davis, this is great. When could the quick fix changes be implemented? Gabe or
Yeah.
Alec?
Yeah, our plan of action is to, we're gathering all those quick quick fixes. We're gonna meet with the appropriate agencies. Like if it's something that has to do with bike, we're gonna send those requests to the bike folks so they can fit it into their work schedule. If it has to do with WAMADA, we're gonna send that information to WAMADA. No, we've met on this and we've identified who the responsible parties are that will address those quick issues. But we want to get those done while the project is in progress.
All right, thank you for that. We have Guillermo Valdez from the Historic Anacostia. It would be amazing to get the sources for those historic photos. Do we have links? Alec?
Alec,
Okay.
Oh, I can jump in quickly. So most of those images are actually from Google Earth. They're publicly accessible in Google Earth, and you can look at the historic photos there. We might have a couple others, but that's the main resource.
Thanks, Liz. Paul Davis, other quick build interventions, i.e. non-infrastructure, are eliminating the double right-hand turn lane, increasing leading pedestrian intervals, and crossing guards during rush hour. Crossing this intersection is a journey into chaos. Studies are great. Long-term stuff is great, but the situation right now should be unacceptable to DDOT and its allies like me. That was just a quick comment.
Yeah, we concur with that. So we're gonna be trying to get some of these quick builds down.
Danielle, extreme traffic in the morning and at 3 p.m. for daily commutes to and from school. Reverend Wanda Thompson, traffic is terrible. People can't see right-hand turns onto 11th Street Bridge. From Danielle, lanes are blocked because if one car or bus stops, the street becomes a bottleneck. Garrett Hennigan, the trail pictured there does not connect to a sidewalk, trail, or even a crosswalk on Good Hope Road. Would be great to get that link to Good Hope and MLK, better yet across the intersection and beyond. Does any of the panelists have any comments they would like to add in reference to these comments that I'm reading off?
Patrice,
Okay. I'm going to go over to the Q&A section and see if we have any questions there. How will you approach the overcoming the often unreasonable requirement imposed by the Historic Preservation Office? I'm not sure if you want to expound on that question. And that's from Guillermo Valdez from the Historic Anacostia. Hello, Gabe?
Can you clarify the question, please?
How you approach the overcoming the unreasonable requirements imposed by the Historic Preservation Office?
That's a good question. Yolanda, do you have any input on that one?
I do. I'm having a hard time responding. Just a minute. Can you hear me, Gabe?
Yeah.
So
We can't hear you.
Yolanda,
let's-
we're unable to hear you.
Yeah. We can't hear Yolanda.
Okay, can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. I hear you.
Okay, just a second. I'm sorry. I've got some feedback here, and I want to make sure that I'm not being interrupted. Is it difficult to hear me?
No, we can hear you now.
Okay. So we have a lot of recommendations and some ideas that are going to be coming up in future steps, and we're not necessarily trying to get the cart in front of the horse. There were some ideas with regard to the CSX line, for example, that we've been thinking about and looking into. And it's the same sort of thing with the historic, aspects of the community that we're going to have to comply with. The most important thing, I think, though, is that some of the changes that happened in the past have affected the area in a negative way. And we really are trying to focus on addressing those as we get into recommendations and do some of the quick fixes as well as the long-term, elements of the plan. So I'd like for folks on the call to hold us accountable and continue to participate and spread the word to others to participate by going online or continuing to track, the project going forward.
Thank you, Yolanda.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going back to the question and answers. We have a question. Would you consider 13th Street to be back? Would you consider changing 13th Street back to a two-way street? It will slow down constant speeding and help with criminal activities. Currently, it is an open-air drug market.
Yeah, that's something like currently we're just at the existing condition phase, but when we look at our data collection and analysis, that we're gonna do, that will inform us on whether or not to make that change. So we still need more time to make that kind of decision. So we're still collecting data on that.
Thank you, Gabe. Going back to the chat, the 11th Street Bridge sign project, the 11th Street Bridge project concept slide turns all of Anacostia in some kind of forest.
Say it again.
The 11th Street Bridge project concept slide turns all of Anacostia into some kind of forest. So I believe you're referencing the slide that Alec presented about the 11th Street Bridge. And that's from Aaron Cohen. Comment, it's still upsetting to see the Shepherd Branch Trail on hold. Let's do it. Spend some of the infrastructure money. I would not gamble my life by taking a bike down Good Hope Road. Does the Ward 8 community want this many bicycle corridors? And that's a question.
What's the question again? Is Ward 8?
Does the Ward 8 community want this many bicycle corridors? So during the presentation, I believe Alec presented a map that showed all of the bike corridors.
The Move DC map, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we are interested in people using other modes other than traffic for so many good reasons. Congestion, the environment. So the more we have more people shifting people from car to bike to buses, the better for everybody else. So that is why we're providing those options, multimodal option. If you don't have the facility, people are less likely to use the bike. If you don't have a good transit stops and good transit system, people are not going to use the buses. So the goal is to have a good multimodal facility so that it can provide options for folks. So that's why you see that map.
Well, and yeah, and just to add to Gabe's point, that's one of the purposes of having these public meetings is to get feedback so we can determine, yeah, does the Ward 8 community want increased bicycle facilities? So the purpose of some of these public meetings is to get that feedback from you.
And I
So
think
one thing to keep in mind is that when you have a bike lane or bus route, it doesn't only serve people that live in that community. There are people coming from adjacent communities that use it also. So, like you said, we'll make that determination in terms of prioritizing the most shares. You know, when we at the end of the study, based on the feedback we gather from the community.
Thank you for that. And then we have another question, another comment in the chat. Minnesota Avenue is too narrow for bike lanes and we need more parking. Most African Americans in Ward 8 travel by bus or car. That's a comment in the chat. Does the previous visualization consider folks who are telecommuting or working from home? I'm guessing that's in reference to the presentation when you were showing the traffic.
Yeah, I can answer that one, Patrice. So that's drawing on 2019 LEHD data, so it's US Census data. So it looks at employer addresses, so it won't reflect work from home, but it's also 2019 data, so we wouldn't be seeing quite the same levels of work from home that I think we're probably seeing today. So that's a good note.
Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
We have a couple comments in the chat saying they commute by car and bicycle.
Treese, we actually have 3 hands that are raised. I know we have a very lively discussion in the chat right now.
Yes, we'll take a break and we can go to those hands raised. Do you mind?
Yes, I will unmute. I do not recall the order, so I'm just gonna go from what I see. Dobermere, you should receive a request to unmute. I see that you're unmuted, but I don't know that we can hear you. Okay, we'll try that one more time. We're not hearing you if you are speaking.
Okay, wait, we can come back to them and go on to, I think it's Natasha.
Okay. Natasha, there should be a prompt on your screen requesting that you unmute.
No, she can't.
Yes,
Okay.
I saw the chat message. I guess we'll just move on to Brenda.
Ms. Richardson, you're unmuted if you would like to ask a question.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, we
Oh,
can.
great. Great. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I think that the first thing that I hope that you guys will be mindful of is 47 people is not a reflection of the community that is impacted by this study. And I'd like to encourage all of us that are here to invite others to be a part of this conversation so you can get more accurate information. And then secondly, I also hope that you guys will be mindful of the existing culture in Ward 8. And what I mean by that is that a lot of us that live here drive and we ride the bus. And it just seems a little overwhelming that there's such a big push to put bike lanes all over the ward. And if that's something that the community decides that they do not want, is DDOT going to step back and take that into, because it seems like this train is already down the track and these bicycle corridors are going to happen anyway. But what if we decide that that's not what we want? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, we're gonna be sharing. Part of the study goal is to gather information on all these modes. So if the community decides overwhelmingly that they do not want a bike path or bike lane in their community, that's something we'll have to share with DDOT management. That will be their decision. So it's part of the feedback we'd like to gather on what your priorities are.
Thank you, Gabe. Do we have any more hand raised? We have Mr. Graylin Pressburg.
You should. Oh. Hello.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear.
Okay. Unfortunately, I host another meeting at this very time, and I did not realize that I could not connect with my phone to participate, well, with my tablet to participate in this meeting. I had to use my phone, and with the instructions that we got early on, it doesn't help a person using their phone to figure out how to do the chat, how to participate in the polls, how to get to the Q&A. I just discovered how to get to the chat. And when I got to the chat, it said that the chat was disabled. I could not chat to everyone. So this has been a very unnerving experience for me. I mean, I can see the slides, I can hear the presentation, but I could not participate.
If I may jump.
And unfortunately, I have another very important meeting that I got to get to, a meeting that I'm normally hosting, and I'm losing people from participating in. And it's like, I had to select my priorities. And unfortunately, I chose to participate in this meeting tonight and with my phone and unable to participate. I had my hand up earlier, but I guess nobody saw it.
Thank you for sharing it, and I apologize that you had a bit of difficulty accessing the chat.
Yeah, Patrice, if I can just jump in real quick with a comment. This is a new meeting type that we are doing. This is only our third meeting. We don't usually have the chat enabled for most meetings, but we did have it open. We had to adjust the permissions on the fly. I apologize for that. This is Molly Burns with DDOT. I help run our virtual public meeting program. I hear your concerns. I'm definitely taking them into account, and moving forward, we'll make sure that things are as clear as possible in terms of how meetings will be participated. I do believe the slides earlier did speak to how to use the Q&A. However, I don't know that it was fully read, so like for those on the mobile device, you need to click the 3-dot icon for more options to access the Q&A, right? Much like that's how you access the chat. There's the chat bubble there as well. Again, I apologize for any confusion and so on.
Yeah, this is Gabe. I also do apologize for that. We'll try to make some improvements and take into account your issues.
Is there anything you want to share with the group while you have the mic at this time?
Mama, can you hear us?
Yeah, it looks like he's no longer, I don't see him on any longer. So,
He said he had another meeting.
yeah, so thank you for those comments. So going back to the chat, do we have any more? We have a couple more hand raised. Paul Davis. Well, we have Natasha. Natasha, are you able to unmute yourself? You've had your hand up for quite some time. Okay. Paul Davis. He has his hand raised, Molly. You're unmuted. You can speak now and ask your question, Mr. Davis.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I understand there was some frustration on the instructions, but thanks for convening us. This is it's a good event, and I want to say it was great to have Brenda on this call. Her work with the Oxon Hill Park. It's an inspiration. It's a model for a community. So it was great to have her here. I hate to say it because I like Brenda so much and what she's doing for the community, but there's a little bit of daylight between me and her on sort of what this study is all about. I think it's a false choice between being pro car or pro bike. And DDOT's responsibility, any area has got to be focused on mobility and safety and people getting here, leaving here, going through here, getting around here, no matter what mode of transportation they're using. The focus has to be safety. And I think that's why you see so many people who walk here, run here, push strollers here, push wheelchairs, who cycle around here, showing up to this kind of event. Because if you're in a car, you're inconvenienced. You might be delayed, and I understand that that's a frustration. But when you're on foot or on a bike or pushing a stroller and you're getting around this area, it's life and death. And so it's not the voices and the viewpoints trying to make it safer for the other modes of transportation. The cars are still going to be here. They've always been here. They always will be. That's how it should be. What we're trying to do is make it safer for the other modes of transportation, which are no more, no less important than the people who have cars. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you so much for that comment. Yeah, we try to push a multi-modality safety for all modes. That's our project goal. So that people, if you decide to be using the bus or the bike, it's going to be to make it safe for you and convenient for you. Sidewalk, make it walkability. So because there are, like he said, there are choices, many choices. People use different aspects to move around.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Gabe. I'm gonna jump back over to the chat for a quick second. We have a couple more comments. Reference to the buses, the P6 and the other buses disappear from the real-time schedule, making it very hard to plan. There is a lot of illegal parking during rush hour along Good Hope Road. It's also unclear that Good Hope Road is 2 lanes going towards MLK. There are no lane markings. Another comment, I wish there were wider sidewalks. Hard to walk along sidewalks in some areas, particularly near the bus stop at Good Hope Road and 13th Street Southeast. Another comment, sadly, transit priority lanes are only good if they are respected and enforced. Wheelchairs can get by on a sidewalk that's 2 times wider. And Paul Davis actually just kind of mentioned this, but I'll just read it. Many of the drivers who try to run over cyclists and pedestrians live in Maryland and Virginia. They don't care about this community area and they are not on this form, yet the intersection is designed for them. All right. Molly, I'm going to go back to the hand raises. We have Danielle. She has her hand raised. Can you unmute her so she can ask her question?
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment. I think going to the comment about parking, yes, you have to look at the priority of what the mass population needs. If the majority of the people in the area are under between 18 and 36 and you're elderly, you have to consider that population when you're thinking about making these quick fixes. But you also have to propose solutions that have a healthy compromise if you're going to introduce any kind of bike lanes. And I know that's a very disputable comment, but you have to think about who is the priority that you're building for, who is your target audience. And if you're going to introduce bike lanes of any sort, and even now, you have to make the scenario safer. It's currently not safe to even drive, walk, or take the bus. There's no enforcement of parking, of traffic regulations, and it's kind of everybody does what they want to do, and there's no consequence.
Thank you, Danielle, for that comment.
Patrice, Natasha Corley also wants to speak, I believe.
Yes, Natasha, she's unmuted. Go ahead, you can answer your question.
Okay, so my question is this. Like I said before, I'm not totally cons of the bike lanes, but my thing of it is we have a lot of elderly people in the community. That Social Security building, like we barely have any traffic in that tiny intersection. The animal hospital is over there. Also, there's a building over there that just been built that doesn't have any parking. So if you guys are going to bring all of these changes, I think it's going to make things worse. Now, we were able to bike, I'm a cyclist as well. We were able to bike on the sidewalks. Why can't they just widen the sidewalks for pedestrians, wheelchairs, and cyclists, but leave the streets alone? We need the parking over there.
Thank you, Natasha. Gabe? Gabe, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
Thank you for the comment about the bikes. This is why we're gathering all this feedback in order to inform any kind of recommendations we're going to be making at the study. So at this point, we haven't decided that we're going to do bike lane or we're not going to do bike lane. We're still at the existing condition to understand what is happening, to understand the competing needs. So after we gather all our data and look at them, analyze it, then we can begin to discuss what are the best options for the community based on the feedback we'll gather from you.
All right, thank you. We also have Steve Henry's hand is raised. Can you unmute him? Steve, you're unmuted.
My name is Steve, and I live here in Ward 8, and I just want to comment on the bike lanes because right now I noticed that like only Alabama Avenue and Martin Luther King Avenue have bike lanes. So I think there do need to be more bike lanes here in Ward 8. However, you have to still consider people who need parking, like people in chat were just saying, like you're going to church, you're going to school or whatever, you need like somewhere to park. So I just want to say that like if you can't put bike lanes in, I think that just putting arrows on the street, like arrows showing like where the bikes will go, will be good enough if bike lanes can't be put in the street. And also, I think that transit should be prioritized because I ride the bus. I've been riding the bus since I was like 5 years old, and I do know like there's a lot of traffic over here in Ward 8, and I believe that prioritizing the buses, because I know that endless people over here in Ward 8, we ride the bus. So I think that we should prioritize the buses and everyone else in general, like cars, bikes, whatever, because everyone needs to get around the city safely. So that's just my comment I want to say. So Thanks.
Yeah, thank you for your comment. Yeah, it's one of the bus priority corridors, Martin Luther King, based on what you just said, because there's a lot of people using it. So when they do the bus priority, they do some signal changes to give buses time, so that they be more reliable for the users. So that's why they create those bus priority corridors.
All righty, thank you for that. I'm going to just head back to the chat to get through some of these comments and questions. I know the 92 usually stops in the middle of the street because cars are often parked there. So if there was a clear spot for the bus and people didn't park there, the bus wouldn't need to block traffic. Then we also have a question. Will you send out a mailer pool to the affected community to get conclusive view of priorities from the greater community?
That's something for us to consider. We're going to be doing, Patrice, you can speak on this. We'll have different vehicles to gather feedback, including pop-ups. Patrice, I'll speak on this.
Yes, so over this next coming months in the summer, we are working with our community partners to get the word out about this study and then also collect feedback from the public. So if you attended this meeting and we have your email address, we will share those upcoming events with the community. We recently participated at some events where we collected a lot of feedback. Some of what we heard tonight at the DDOT Open Streets event. So if you have any events or any partners or groups that you think we should engage in the community, we can do that. You can send that to us via email, or you can put that in the chat now.
Thank you, Patrice.
Okay. We have a couple more comments about parking. Adequate parking for people who are visiting our area, especially as Anacostia becomes more developed. Another comment about parking. Why put buildings up with no garage and then lessen the spaces that we have? Let's see. Gonna go back to the question and answer. We have a question in the chat. DDOT constantly approves enormous by-scale projects that don't fit the narrow MLK and Good Hope Road. Any thoughts on that?
You're talking about like developments projects,
Yes.
right? Yeah. Usually when a development is coming in, we'll have a development review division. They are the ones that determine how many parking spaces they need, or do they need parking at all? So they are the ones that make those decisions. So we'll have a system in place to evaluate any kind of decision that is coming in any part of the district. So they review the plans and then they make recommendations on what they need, whether parking, bike, and other facilities, based on the size of the development and the number of employees coming into that building.
All righty, thank you for that. It is now 7:59, and we appreciate all of the comments and questions and things that were mentioned in the chat. We are going to record all of these questions and comments, and the project team will take a look at this and review this for the study. If you have any other additional questions or comments that you would like the team to be aware of, please you can shoot us the email. And then if you just don't mind at the end of this meeting, just completing the Title V form here, you can either scan this QR code or complete the form You'll get a prompt at the end of the meeting once you close out to complete the form. I'm sorry.
Again, this is Gabe. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. This is just the first of the series of outreach events we're going to be having. So thank you. Hope to see you next time.
Yes, and I just quickly like to add, this is Stacy. I work with Patrice for outreach. As you've heard repeatedly, this is one of many opportunities you'll have to engage with us. And we appreciate all of your comments tonight. If a comment or question wasn't read, please know that we received them. All of them are being reviewed and considered. And if you'd like to send something to us, we'd just like to repeat you can send it directly to me, which is Stacy at tbaconnects.com. That's STACEE at tbaconnects.com. Or we have a project email. Molly, if you could someone that could back up to the previous slide. It's on the screen now. That project email is info@mlk and spelled out ANDGHRstudy.com. So you can always send comments there. And again, we'll be out in the community at different events throughout the summer. So this is just one of many opportunities. Thank you very much. And if anyone else on the project team has anything to say before we end the meeting. Again, don't forget to fill out the Title VI form for us. Thank you. There's a QR code. You can scan that. It's just a few questions, basically to help us that we have to submit to Civil Rights, Office of Civil Rights. So thank you so much. If no one else has anything to say, then we can adjourn the meeting. Thank you again for attending. Everybody be safe. Okay, thank you. We appreciate you.
Thanks, everybody.